Hey guys, so I have three book recommendations for 2026 for you. I think these works are excellent, really top tier, probably S tier rank. This year recently, I've been reading more practical works like history, French history, some economic history. So it's been less like abstract works like I usually read. It's been more like concrete works, and you'll see that in some of the selection for these. But I think these are all really excellent works, and I highly recommend that you check them out. So with that, I'll start off with number three. This is Ray Dalio's book, The Changing World Order. This is an older version. He has like a newer one where he specifically talks about like debt and like how countries go through like the debt cycle, and he touches on that in here. But this is more specifically focused on just he basically kind of goes over a path of first like going through the different examples of what's going on in these cycles that he calls these. They're both like historical, political, and just overall like historical cycles. I see some parallels here, honestly, with Hegel's philosophy of history, which is why I found this really interesting. Originally, you would think this work is kind of maybe it's not so serious or not so dense, but Dalio is a respected person in the financial industry, and really, this book is not trivial at all. I highly recommend this. This is such a good read. Yeah, so I'll just go over like some of the chapters so you can kind of get a better idea. Like I said, he talks about like cycles. He talks about a big cycle, the big cycle in money, credit, debt, and economic activity, the changing value of money, the big cycle of like international order, and then the big cycle of external order and disorder. And then that's kind of like part one of the book. And then in part two, he gives like specific historical examples from 500 years ago. Again, this is not like a trivial read. Usually I'm used to like abstract and dense stuff, but this is like a fantastic book. I really highly recommend this. This is like a tier stuff. And then he kind of goes through specific historical examples. He talks about the Dutch Empire, its rise and fall, both like internal, external, and like in its economic cycles. He also talks about the British Empire, and then that's and the cycles around that. And then finally, he goes over into the United States and just like the rise of the dollar, and then like the rise and fall potentially of the United States. But he really just goes through over all of these parts, and then at the end he kind of goes through the future. This is a very well researched work, and I believe Dalio spent like a lot of time and resources on this. There is, like I said, there's a newer version that specifically focuses on the debt cycle, but this is an excellent work. I highly recommend this. Definitely check this one out. Okay, so my number two recommendation is actually another, I would say, practical leaning work. Like I said, I've been reading like kind of a mixture this year between like more historical, practical stuff. And this one is The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene. Robert Greene he's well known for, of course, like the very famous like 48 Laws of Power. Um, this is another one of his works. I had not read his works, and like I feel like a lot of times he gets passed over as like too trivial and like just like read the classics instead. But actually, he was a classicist. I'm pretty sure like his formal background in education was in the classics, so he's read a lot of these like great works, and he synthesized his ideas in this. And in this one, like he specifically talks about like the laws of human nature. I know that can be a little bit of a contentious topic, like is there even laws of human nature? But these are kind of like his views on like the biological and social inclinations of like human beings in general. And just to get like a better feel for it, like just some of the chapters, right? He talks about like master your emotional self, transform self love into empathy, see through people's masks, determine the strength of people's character. So he kind of just gives these like very practical guidelines. And then he talks about like, softens people's resistance. So this kind of like a practical guide to people's human behavior in like a social setting, and like what how you should behave, what you should look out for in terms of for other people. It's really a great work. Like there's some very valuable stuff in here. I specifically like the part where he talks about like the like people see through people's masks. That's like a fantastic one. I think is a very practical application to basically anybody. But yeah, this work is fantastic. Also, S tier work. I love this. This is really good. Definitely check this one out. Um, yeah, it's great, and he, like I said, it's very practical. Like there's what he does is like he'll go over like a brief like example story from history. Like he talks about, for example, like the House of Chanel in one example. Another case he gives of like a famous politician. Then another case he gives of like a classic, like from the Greek like during the Peloponnesian War. So he uses these examples, and then he'll like dive more into depth into each of them to explain basically what valuable like human insights about human nature that we should glean. But yeah, this is not like don't think this is just some like not serious work or something, like or like some popular like just modern work. This is fantastic. This is a great book. I highly recommend this. And I usually don't read too many like more current modern works. So I'm more into the classics. But yeah, this is excellent, top tier. Definitely highly recommend this. Check this out. All right, guys, and so for the last one that I recommend, this is number one on my list. This is Permutation City by Greg Egan. This is a sci-fi work. I've actually been in the last couple like year or two, I've been getting more into like sci-fi works. I feel like sci-fi works really give a great projection of the future and like what the future could look like, and it's better than any academic or any other like thinkers or writers that I've seen. Greg Egan is a computer scientist, I believe, and like a lot of these like famous like Werner Vinge, I think. Stanislav Lem. That just some of the other ones like Neuromancer, like William Gibson. These are some of the recent ones I've been reading, but Greg Egan is really great. I read Diaspora and Permutation City. Diaspora is also fantastic, but Permutation City is really interesting because it's like a primitive autoverse where it's like a kind of, you can think of like Google's new like Genie 3 like world model, but like this is like more advanced in the future where like the characters can create these worlds from scratch, and then some of the characters live in like something called like solipsist nations where it's like a basically like a virtual reality world that just like they can exist in. And I don't want to spoil it, but basically one of the characters is tasked with creating just such a world for like a specific set of like very rich people. For a particular reason, something is going to happen, and like they're kind of trying to go into this digital world to, let's say, escape. But this is fantastic. I mean, Greg Egan is so good. If you want to have like any idea about like potential futures or like where all of like current technology could lead to, I think sci-fi in general is fantastic. And I wish I had gotten to reading some of these classics like years ago. But yeah, I really like his works. I'm gonna keep reading them. This Permutation City is super interesting. I mean, like if you're interested into any of that, like kind of like matrix simulation, like I said, like just ideas around that, and like he really takes it to the like extreme and edge. Definitely check this out. This is like S tier, probably one of my favorite like books in general, not even just sci-fi. His other book, Diaspora, is also fantastic. But yeah, guys, so that's it. These are the top three books I recommend that you check out in 2026. I think all these are great. I've read all of them. I can vouch for them. Fantastic works. I don't think you'll be disappointed. There's a lot you can learn in terms of just like everything, like practical wise. But yeah, check out all of these great works. And that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.